Hello, Emma. We're now live. You can take it over. Hello.
Yes. Hi, John. Okay.
The live broadcast is already set. You can maybe start. We're already live on Facebook. Qhala's Facebook page.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I will begin. Hello, and welcome to yet another inquisitive session. I am so excited and super stoked to have you all here. Excited about all the amazing conversations that we are going to have about our topic today, which is how to become a more flexible, agile, and intelligent company through digital transformation. Now, before we begin, let me give a brief introduction about me. My name is Emma Mwaura. I sit at the intersection of user experience research and product management at Qhala. Qhala is a two-in-one company, which is innovation consulting as well as a venture lab. And what we do is we help organizations solve their most pressing problems, we inspire growth and achieve high results through embedding digital transformation and innovation into the company culture. So we've been building and launching digital and data platforms as well as ventures that help in solving key societal as well as economic problems for about a year now. So today's topic on digital transformation, we will be speaking or showing you how you can run your business through digital transformation, which is an opportunity to revisit internal systems, customer interactions, and more. And obviously, people at the head can be able to attest to this, that it's not a short-term plug-in concept, but a deep-rooted process that reshapes company goals, values, and employees' mindsets. So the benefit at the end of this process of the digital transformation wholesome process is enhanced customer experience and operational flexibility. It is a coordinated digitalization or change of efforts at scale, diffused through operating model and all aspects of business, including people, processes, technologies, and metrics. The goal of this is to bring meaningful outcomes to the organization, and it is therefore a leading force in business today. And to help us cover this topic today, we have an amazing set of panelists, three of them, and we shall begin by an amazing woman and a superwoman and visionary. What's special about her is that she is obsessed about leveraging technology in building customer-centric products and services. She's also skilled in product management, digital strategy, commercial execution, agile delivery, and leadership, and she has over 13 years of experience. As the head of digital technology and delivery at Housing Finance Group, she's responsible for driving the bank's digital transformation strategy. Previously, she has served as a senior consultant at Softgen Group, where she led several project implementations across countries in Africa. She has a master's focused on organizational development from United States International University, and she has also completed coursework in digital transformation strategies from the University of Cambridge. She is also a wonderful, devoted mother of two, and today she will be sharing with us on digital transformation and processes, and she will touch on how digital transformation plays a big role in company processes, creating tremendous opportunity for those who leverage the new ways of operating. Please help me welcome Anita Chege. Anita?
Thank you very much, Emma, for that warm welcome. I'm looking forward to this session, to sharing my thoughts and experiences, as well as learning from my fellow panelists. Thank you.
Okay. I'd love to apologize in advance in case we have some internet connections or problems, which I believe is a common problem now that most companies have adopted the work from home model. Thank you, Anita, for that. Today also we have in attendance is a gentleman who has a comprehensive engagement in digital financial services, entrepreneurship, innovation, and payments. He has worked the gamut of telecommunication companies, that is Telkom Kenya, Ericsson Kenya, and Safaricom. Having transitioned to the financial industry, he wishes to combine his knowledge and experience to drive an entrepreneurial culture that accumulates customer value along the chain of activities of product development. Currently, he serves as the head of group of payments at Leshigo Holdings Limited, where he delivers cutting-edge payments, remittances, and financial solutions for the group. Today, he will be speaking to us about digital transformation and technologies or metrics, and he will especially touch on how the different technologies used by companies enable them maximize on the digital revolution and how companies can track their performance or metrics of success. Please help me welcome Razel Akwom.
Jambo, and thank you, Emma. I'm glad to be here amongst the panelists. Thank you very much for having me, and I can't wait for an exciting session. Thank you.
We are so glad to have you here, Akwom, and we can't wait to hear the gems of wisdom that you'll share with us today. Finally, amongst our panelists, we have a media technology expert and human-centered design and innovation strategist who has worked with Microsoft East Africa and Nation Media Group for 15 years cumulatively. He's currently working at Nation Media Group company as the head of strategy and innovation. He oversees the digital transformation journey, new monetization opportunities. His account is developing strategic roadmaps, assembling highly effective teams, measuring and monetizing audiences, and executing to deliver bottom line results that enhance organizational growth and sustainability. He uses his strong business strategy approach and technological feasibility to create both market opportunity and customer value. He's currently pursuing an executive master's in media leadership and innovation at the Graduate School of Media and Communications at the Aga Khan University. Today, he will be sharing with us about digital transformation and people. That is a touch on how digital transformation affects company culture and how that impacts performance. Please help me welcome, please help me welcome Max Okeo to the session today. Max, over to you.
Thank you very much, Emma, and I look forward to fruitful engagement. I'm honored to be here.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Max, and we also can't wait to hear what you'll share with us today. So having introduced our panelists or speakers for today's inquisitive session, I'd love to start with Max Okeo, who again, as I said, will touch on how digital transformation affects company culture and how that impacts performance, at least for the next 20 minutes. Max, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Emma. I'm presuming everyone can see my screen. Emma, you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can be able to see it.
All right, thank you. I'll go straight into it. And I think the focus today for me is to discuss or to just highlight the issues around culture that impacts digital transformation. Now, a lot of the things around our digital transformation journey and across the industries has been accelerated by the fact that COVID disrupted the comfort zones for everyone. And so people quickly shifted into trying to move into the next space to mitigate the losses or the gaps that they had experienced during the COVID period. Now, what we need to understand is that this is the new normal. And as we're waiting to begin, I was just thinking this forum would have been an in-person forum in another time and space. And all of us would be seated in one room deliberating about things around digital transformation. But the world has changed, and we've got to live with the new normal as is now. Entertainment has changed from cinemas, going into cinemas, to movies, getting movies at home through Netflix and other platforms. Apparel, from smart casuals to loungewear, from restaurants to deliveries at home, from travel in terms of walking tours to virtual tours, from physical learning experiences or going for classes around your environment, around your neighborhood, to online classes. So the industry has experienced a lot of trends that have redefined the new normal. One of the things that we're looking at in the new normal would be the disruptive technologies and trends, things around the Internet of Things, the intelligent robots, mobile supercomputing, artificial intelligence as a big part of it, declining in print circulation in our environment, fragmented digital spaces that then have disaggregated the audiences that we had within a small internet community that was set up at the time. Now, there's also the reader revenue model that has also elicited a lot of concern around both the local African market and the international market. There's the rise of the knowledge customer, that they know what they want, when they want it, how they want it, and in what formats they want it. So it is important that we are ahead of them, as opposed to them chasing new value in spaces where we do not operate in. So we have to be very careful to be shaping that new environment for them, as opposed to them going ahead of us. Otherwise, we'll be chasing after them. So more importantly is the COVID-19 situation. And a lot of companies over the COVID period, about 71% of companies who have begun the transition into digital transformation have been compelled or forced to move into that direction due to COVID. 63% within the African setup were forced to move into that direction because of COVID. 96% of leaders in corporates across the world have moved into the digital transformation space as a result of COVID, and it has been just accelerated by COVID. Otherwise, it would have taken them another 5.5 years to do so. So a lot of this has not just been because it was in the plan. Yes, it was in the plan, but a lot more people would have done it slower. But it is what it is, and so we are where we are, just to make sure that we are sustaining our businesses. Now, if you look at what I'm highlighting right now is the issue around developing experiences that do not speak to the customer. So you have designed a product or a brand based on your needs without understanding what the customer is. And like I said, we're dealing with the rise of the knowledge customer. A lot of them know what they want and how they want it. And a lot of their needs keep changing on a day-to-day basis. So we're dealing with a customer whose needs are changing almost on a day-to-day basis on different platforms, on different channels, so to speak. It could be mobile today, it could be a handheld device, it could be a smartwatch. Yeah. So we have to continuously invest in data and analytics to help us understand who this consumer is and what they want, how are their trends changing, what is the network around them, what are they consuming, how do they like to consume it? Do they like to consume it in the video format? Do they like to consume it in text format? Do they want to consume it as audio? Yeah, or do they want to consume it as graphics? So it is important that as we are developing products, we need to understand what kind of experience, what kind of product can the customer resonate with. Now, in leading change within the digital transformation setup, there are a couple of things that are key in driving this change. One is in anticipating the future. And we have to admit, a lot of people were caught off guard with COVID. They probably had a lot of these things in the plan, but were broken down over a period of 3 to 5 years. So one of the things would be to understand, what is this big picture you're trying to drive as an organization? What is the end game? So that then you're not stepping out to run and with no direction of where you're going to. So it has to be very clear what the big picture of success looks like. Paint this picture of success to the teams and help them understand what the direction is. Because without this, then it means everyone pulls in their own direction, even within the same organization. And that then results to a decline in customer engagement. And of course, as a result, your revenues begin to drop. Two is the issue around having inflection points that then help you define what that future is like. Strategy is about choices, and execution is about managing transformation. So in management of the transformation, one of the things we need to look at is an inflection point about your culture. Do you have a culture that will help you drive a sustainable business? Two is about structure. Are you structured for success? Are you structured well enough to drive your business sustainably into the future going forward? And three is about investment in infrastructure or technology, for that matter. Technology is a big part of it. And for us at Nation, at the point at which we were starting our digital transformation journey, it was important that we take a pit stop and validate the infrastructure that we already had on board that was existing for us. Did it make sense? Was it going to drive us into the future? Was it focused on mobile? Did it have AI capabilities? Was it going to drive audiences to our brand or our platforms or our products, for that matter, or was it going to pull them down? Three is the issue around driving a culture of innovation. A lot of this is said, but when it gets to real action, a lot of people have not set up structures to facilitate that culture of innovation within the organization. So in developing a culture of innovation, one of the things we need to look at is creating an environment where people are free to share their ideas, where people are able to try out things. People have freedom or leeway to even fail. Fail fast, fail quickly, and move on. The other issue is around communication. Communication, as they say, is king. It is important that as you build this picture of success, it is important that people understand how they contribute to the bigger picture. How do they contribute to the overall goal or the objective of the organization? How do they participate individually? How do you link their KPIs, their overall objectives as individuals, to the bigger goal to help drive that digital transformation success? Because the more people understand how they participate in it, the more they're driven to contribute towards it. And that then leads to the issue around involving teams and breaking it down to work streams that then drive the picture of success. Internally, what we did was to have different work streams that were put together through cross-functional help. So one of the teams was marketing, to understand consumer insights, to understand what the product should look like outside and how we need to present it to the customer. User education, because we're getting into a new space around the reader revenue model. We're inherently a traditional publisher, and how we made our money was through advertising, selling eyeballs through advertising, and selling our newspapers out in the market through physical distribution, circulation, as it were. And so since that customer has changed, we needed to move into the new space and identify how do we address our changing customer differently within the digital space. And then the other thing that is important around managing this change and transitioning successfully into the digital space is managing expectations across different stakeholders within the organization and outside the organization. So we've got what we call succession progression. How are we celebrating our successes? How are we identifying the milestones that help us to make progress into the next level of activities that we need to address? And then in line with that, there are the issues around frustration regression. Who is pulling us back? Why are they pulling us back? What is it that they do not understand about the bigger picture? Is it that they are not participating directly? Are they afraid that they'll lose their jobs? Are they afraid that their roles are quickly becoming redundant? How is it that they can participate in the new spaces? So it's important that you address the frustration regressions or the headwinds that pull you back within your digital transformation journey. And all this is driven by a leader who understands the overall scope of what you're trying to achieve and how teams come in and how partnerships come in, how different expertise within the organization come in to build the overall strategy or achievement. Now, in adapting and serving the customer with a changed mindset and a product fit within the digital space, there are a couple of things that we look at. And like I said earlier, for us, it was a transition. We needed to move very quickly into the digital space because we were losing out on traditional revenues and traditional eyeballs as well. So one of the things that has been important for us is that we've deliberately set aside time for creativity. We have forums within the organization where people just take time to be creative about their ideas. We get people critiquing these ideas and carrying them forward. What could work is carried forward, and we try them out on prototypes. What doesn't work, we drop them very quickly and move on to the next thing. But as we do that, we encourage and motivate people to pursue new ways of working on a continuous basis, so that then we're challenging what we'd naturally call the status quo and challenging the old way of doing things. And as a result, there have been a couple of new ideas within the digital space, new developments, new products that then have helped us begin to see the digital spectrum for us to scale up into what then becomes not just eyeballs or engagement, but also revenues that are beginning to take shape within the digital space. Now, this is not an overnight success. It's a long journey, and we call it a marathon. It's not a sprint, because it's time and effort and mindset shifts that help us then drive the transition of both audiences and advertiser revenue into the new spaces. So there has to be a lot of patience that comes with it. We have to encourage risk-taking within the teams, so that then we're trying out new things, challenging the status quo, like I said, and providing space for freedom of new ideas or experimentation and unconventional thinking that has not inherently been acceptable within the organization. I think we are an old entity, and like all other old mature entities, there are structures that then challenge new thinking or hold back people from trying out new things. So we've broken down those walls so that people are able to try out these things in a free environment. Now, in line with this, I think a lot of this goes with the leadership, like I mentioned earlier. So leadership is not just from the top. Leadership is across the different levels of the organization. So we have, of course, we have the executive management. We've got the board. We've got middle-level management, and we've got teams with champions who then help drive the digital transformation agenda. Now, one of the key things for us that we felt was important in the digital transformation journey, once we had the framework, was to be able to get all executives on board and to help them understand how they participate in this big picture of success. So that way it was an easier conversation to trickle down to the rest of the organization. It is important that you carry everyone along. Some, yes, will drop off. Some will not agree with you. Some will resign. We've had people who even resign because they did not agree with what we're trying to do. But it is what it is. You have to move on forward with those who believe in it, those who would then be advocates of what you're trying to achieve. Along the way, like I said, you'll have those saboteurs, those people who do not believe you're getting anywhere. How do you address them? Do you kick them out or do you onboard them? See how well you can address their concerns around the shift into the new digital transformation and new digital spaces. Help them get responsibilities that help them drive that agenda. So they're a part of it as opposed to against it. The fewer the saboteurs you have on board, the better for you. So then you're continuously moving ahead as opposed to having headwinds. The other thing is the issue around building a simple but strong story that sells your vision. As leaders, it is important that the vision is very simple. In one simple statement, just help people understand what you're trying to achieve. You look at the Americans when they're taking the man to the moon, everyone in the organization, including the shop floor, the person who was sweeping was asked what, the janitor was asked, what are we trying to do? And he said, we're taking the man to the moon. We're taking a man to the moon. And that was it. The detail is secondary. So as long as people understand what the overall objective is, that's all that matters, because that is what they work towards. Now, as you work towards this, it is important that you create one team and a team across functions, so that then they're seeing themselves as part of this one objective. At Nation, we have the brand, the digital brand, we're calling it Nation.Africa. So we have one Nation.Africa team. Within it, we have responsibilities from different functions. We've got people looking at the product. When I talk about the product, they're looking at the promos, the discount, the pricing levels, the customer engagement issues. We've got the UI UX experience team. We've got the marketing team that pushes the brand outside. We've got the techies that look at the back end and the front end of the product that they're developing. So it's basically a cross-functional team that comes together and works together as one individual team, so that it is not them versus us, or when something goes wrong, it's you said, he said. It's one team that has one strategic vision and is driving that vision together as a team. Then the other more important thing is about opening internal channels for engagement and allowing creativity. I mentioned that earlier, so that then people have freedom to express themselves freely within either their peer setup or within engagements with the executive team, but facilitating an interactive environment where you have open feedback as opposed to what I call sandwich feedback, where people just sugarcoat the things, the feedback they want to give you. When they go back to their desks, they start talking about what the real issues are. So it's important to create an environment where you're given feedback, so that as you drive the journey ahead, you're walking along with the team together with you. And I think in the digital space, the reason why this comes in very strongly is because that space keeps changing on a day-to-day basis. What you know today as fact might not be fact tomorrow, or might not be viable tomorrow. So what you're developing today has to be solid enough to address the needs of tomorrow. Otherwise, you end up in making an investment in infrastructure or talent or a culture that just helps you drive the current business. Then, most importantly, for me, I think the issues around execution. It is important that you keep moving forward, no holding back. Procrastination kills digital agendas, because, like I said, digital is a moving target. It keeps moving, and you have to keep moving forward with it. You have to lead your customers in the transition into the digital space. Do not let them lead you into that space. If your customers are moving ahead of you, then you're taking too much time. Yeah. And the other thing I keep saying is, if everything is under control, then you aren't moving fast enough. You have to live on the edge. Otherwise, you'll be occupying too much space. Probably, finally, for me, in summary, I think the key highlights would be one, in developing a culture that helps you drive a digital workspace or a digital agenda that is sustainable for the business and that helps you transition both eyeballs and revenue opportunities in the new spaces. Two is develop a structure that is less hierarchical, flatter in nature, with open collaborative setups. And that's why you see a lot more companies are moving into what we call squads and tribes. It's flatter, open for collaboration, integrates teams across functions with different skill sets. And so like here, what we're trying to do, though we've not implemented the tribes and squad flat structure setup, we have looked at our structure and split it into the customer, commercial, and technology, within which there's a lot of collaboration that helps us drive both customer engagement, transition into the new spaces for customer and for revenues, and continuous development for technology and infrastructure that helps us drive sustainable engagement with the customer. So in our journey, there are roles that dropped off. And in your journey, I'm sure there are certain roles that will definitely drop off. But even as you drop off some roles, there are new roles that will come up to help you drive that digital transformation agenda. Because not all the legacy or traditional roles will fit into the new digital transformation space. But it is the nature of the industries that we operate in. Some roles will remain relevant, some will require to be upskilled, but some will drop off entirely. The other thing is lean processes and structures. Within the digital transformation space, digital transformation is about an entire business reengineering, mental reengineering of your teams, reengineering of business models. So that in its entirety requires processes that are leaner, that are more agile, and that are nimble to help you drive successfully a business that makes sense going into the future. 4 is systems in terms of technology, that we have to leverage on technology on an ongoing basis with continuous development. Invest in talent that helps you drive that continuous development of the systems that you have. You might outsource, yes. You could have them in-house. You could partner with technology companies just to be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. For us, we've done probably all 3. We've got a team in-house that is backed up by outsourced resources, and also partnering with technology companies, because we are not a technology company. We're a content company. That is our DNA. We live and die by it. And so we cannot invest too heavily on a development tech team or a tech development team, because then we get into the cycle of competing with the new technologies that come on board. So to mitigate against that, then we've partnered with technology companies to help us then just keep abreast with what the customer is looking for. Last but not least, and this is very important, is issues around the right talent. Are we investing well enough on talent? Talent helps you drive everything. The right talent, with the right mindset, and the right attitude will help you drive the right culture. The right talent will help you drive the right structure to be able to drive the organization forward. The right talent will help you establish right processes and the right systems within the organization. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that, Max. We've really enjoyed the session. And again, just a quick reminder to our audience or our attendees today. We are talking about how to become a more flexible, agile, intelligent company through digital transformation. I will be definitely sharing some of the pointers that I have noted down after all the speakers have spoken or presented to us. And then I'll definitely also allow the attendees to ask a number of questions that they probably may have. Okay, so joining us now is our second speaker for today's session. Her name is Anita Chege. I had already introduced her. She will touch on how digital transformation plays a big role in company processes and thereby creating tremendous opportunity for those who leverage the new ways of operations. Anita, whenever you're ready, we are waiting for you.
All right, thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, Max, for the insights that you've shared. I think a lot of us probably will be touching on the same things, given that we've been on this journey for a few years. So allow me to probably repeat some of the statements that you've made today. But thank you again for the opportunity. So allow me to share my screen.
Yes, go ahead, Anita. Share your screen.
Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can be able to see it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So before I get into my presentation, my 2 presentation slides, I'll just give a brief about the company I work for right now. I know most of you, all of you are actually familiar with HF Group, which was formerly known as Housing Finance, or HFCK for a lot of us who grew up in the 90s. We are known for Buruburu. We built the Buruburu projects in the late 80s, 70s, and 80s. So we have a lot of people who have sentimental value with HF because most of them probably their parents had their first homes in Buruburu or Komarok. And so for us to start the whole digital journey, we had to look at ourselves where we were at because we were known as a mortgage house solely. And therefore it was important for us to re-strategize and see how then do we play in a bigger market space, considering that there was a lot of things that were changing, the customer expectations were rising quite fast. And therefore in 2014, we embarked on our digital transformation journey that saw us launch our first digital platform in 2018. And most of you are also aware that mortgage is very expensive in this side of the market, in this side of the world, and Kenya specifically. Therefore, we don't have a lot of people who have taken up mortgages. So in terms of our customer base then, before we got into the digital space, was actually below 100,000 because of the kind of niche product we were offering in terms of mortgages. Therefore, when we now launched our platform, our flagship platform called HF Wiz in 2018, we saw a huge uplift in terms of our customer base. And within a few months, we were able to grow our customer base by about 800,000 customers. And that is the power of the right strategy, the right vision and strategy around that, and leveraging on technology and aspects of digital transformation that we're going to talk about later on. And we were able to see actually our business grow, and we are continually seeing that business grow. Yeah, so we're able to tap into other target segments that were not, readily available to us then before the transformation. Therefore, so how I'm going to take up this particular conversation, it's mainly about so what are these processes that we're talking about? And I think Max has alluded to a few. And how I'm going to approach this discussion is so what do you need to do before you look at the processes? Yeah. So what are those key elements about process digitalization that you need to look into even before starting off the journey of digital transformation? Because one of the advantages that any person who's playing in the space has is we have the luxury of experience, yeah? And I think one of the key things that, from my panelists, the reason why probably we're here is because we've embarked on this journey, and there are certain key things that we have learned in the journey that we are here to share information with, with the viewers of this particular webinar. Therefore, before even you start the whole aspect of digital transformation for your processes, you have first of all to look at what are these processes we are looking at. So in processes, looking at us like a financial institution, we have been having customers coming into our branches, depositing money, requesting for loan facilities, savings products, etc., in a very traditional way. Yeah. So before you embark on that particular journey, there are certain things that are very critical to consider when you're building towards transformation, both for the customer-facing applications as well as your back-end processes. Yeah. So the first key thing that any organization needs to look at is you have to start with the end in mind, all right, and then work backwards. So I've later been reading a book by two gentlemen who used to work at Amazon. That's Bill Carr and I can't remember the second one. And the title of the book is actually Working Backwards. And they share the different processes that Amazon goes through in terms of building products for their customers and why they have been very successful. And this is one statement that really stood out for me in terms of how Amazon works. So any organization that's about to digitize their processes, both front-facing and front-facing customer processes and back office processes that support the front-facing processes, you have to look at work backwards. So what is that utopian future that I want to give my customers? Yeah, and a lot of us concentrate on the constraints that we have. one of the key things that a lot of organizations face is the perception or the reality that digital transformation is actually expensive. One of the things that has come out very clearly in the past 3 years that I've been in this space, technology is actually an enabler. Yeah. So even as you're going through this particular process of trying to get into digital transformation, you have to have that end in mind. Forget about all the constraints that you might have at that particular moment. And these constraints may be about financially, or you don't have a team in place already to drive this particular strategy. So with that in mind, then you'll be able to have a proper, well-defined strategy about what is it that the organization wants to achieve. Yeah. And then now we'll start working towards working on those particular constraints that have become apparent for the organization, right? So once that is very clear, then now you go into what is this customer experience that we want to offer our customers. So remember the processes that we're talking about, they're front-facing, how your customers access your different products, and the backend that supports that experience for your customers. Yeah. So you have first of all to concentrate on how is my customer going to experience this particular product. And by product, I just don't mean them getting, for example, if you take a digital application, whether it's on web or on mobile, where a customer has to come in and say, check their balances. No, it has to go beyond that. You have to understand how fast am I going to onboard this customer? What's the experience like at that particular point of the process? How is the onboarding process? Is it flawless? Is it effortless? And how am I tracking and monitoring that particular process, the onboarding process, so that I'm able to know that Max, for example, has been trying to onboard onto my platform, but has certain issues that he's facing in that specific process, yeah? And then have mechanisms that allow you to resolve that particular issue for that specific customer. One of the key things that I have learned is that experience is, you don't generalize experience. Not, sometimes we look at experience from when a service is down. For example, on your platform, you have several use cases. When one use case is down for the entire population, that's when now the teams at the back end pick it up for resolution, yeah? Experience has to be tracked individually, very specific to the customers that you have onboarded. Yeah, and that's one of the things that has to be considered in each and every process that you're trying to transform. The other key thing is around building capabilities, and I think Mark's actually mentioned this. So for you to be able to drive the digital agenda, you have to have a team in place, and this is can be filled in different aspects. So you can have either outsource that particular capability or build a totally different team that allows that the key mandate is actually ensuring that all the different components of the digital experience are being worked on 24/7. Yeah, so this is about getting the right developers who have the right digital skills. And by digital skills, we're talking about a lot of the emerging technologies that drive, that power the digital strategies. Yeah, so people who understand machine learning, who understand data analytics, etc. So it's very important for you for an organization to build that capacity, whether internally or through partnerships, so that you're able to tackle each and every aspect of your digital journey or your digital customer journey flawlessly, responding to customer issues as they rise immediately to ensure that you're able to retain your customers on your platform. The other thing is moving quickly. Agility. Agility is very key. So even as you're defining and transforming your different processes, there has to be buy-in across the whole organization. And this is something also Mark's touched on, so that you're able to have buy-in right from your board level all the way to the other different stakeholders who serve that particular customer that you're solving a problem for, or you're creating value for. So digital transformation is about creating new value for customers, and therefore that has to be understood from top down, and therefore with that kind of approach, it will be easier then to have buy-in whenever certain processes need to be changed or certain investments need to be made by the organization when you have that particular buy-in. Then the other point around process digitalization is around rolling in and not out. So a research was done by McKinsey, and what they wrote after that particular research, where they went through understanding different companies that have been successful in digital transformation, one of the things that they realized is that most of the successful companies actually have sort of like a spin-off of a new organizational unit that drives that particular agenda. And one of the things that incumbents actually have, one of the key challenges that we have as incumbents, and HF, you are one of them, is that when you don't have a new unit that its main focus is that particular strategy realization, then it's very easy to step back to the traditional business. And one of the things that has to be very clear is that digital transformation is very different from automation. So a lot of organizations go through the motions of automating their traditional processes, not really creating new value or creating optimizing back office processes using the emerging technologies. And this is why McKinsey said that the companies that have been successful in this particular process have a distinct unit that its main mandate is around innovation, around creating new value for, whether it's the existing customers in the same organization or a new set of customers, then the success rate of that particular structure is actually much, much better based on that research they did. So those are some of the factors that you need to consider even as you start off this particular journey. One of the disadvantages that a lot of financial institutions, for example, I may speak about, is we don't have the luxury of a startup. You know, a startup will come in and they have zero, they have nothing, they have a blank page. So they'll be able to get the best, systems that support, agility through microservices. So they have a lot of leeway to get the right stuff at the onset. But for us as incumbent organization, we really have to look at what are those tools that we have. So we have legacy systems. Then how do we solve for the issues that we have right now with certain tools that help us to still have the agility that is required by digital transformation? And that brings me to my last point, and that's getting the right tools. Yeah. So as I said, in terms of legacy systems, incumbents actually have a lot of issues when it comes to legacy systems. However, there are certain tools that companies can be able to invest in that will enable that the processes that you're trying to optimize at the back office, or the new experiences and value you're trying to create at the front end, are supported by these tools. Yeah. So in my experience, one of the key tools that any organization should have is you should be able to track customer experience, yeah, and the customer experience at each point of the process that the customer is going through. And one of the things that when it comes to customer experience and creating products is around, customer journey mapping, where you're able to map each and every point of a particular process, yeah, and then solving for that. Therefore, you need to have also tools internally that allow you to monitor experiences at each point of the process in order for you to be able to respond faster, because the digital space, in terms of customers in digital space, are not very lenient, okay, with organizations that don't give them a bad experience. A research was done that 89% of customers who have a bad experience go to the competitor. Therefore, it becomes very important to have the right tools set up to monitor the processes that you have set up, 24/7, and respond to them as fast as possible using the agility that comes with some of these tools. So with that in mind, I decided to have this slide. I decided to have it here because, so once you have all the different, you've taken into account what you should take into account even as you're getting into the journey of digital transformation, transforming your processes, then what are those traits that define an effective digital organization? Yeah. So even as you digitize on your processes, using the different pointers that we've talked about, there's certain things that a company should measure themselves in, even as they embark on this particular journey. The first is to be unreasonably aspirational. Remember, digital transformation is not about automation, it's about creating new value for customers. And in turn, as a business, getting, whether it's value through revenues or whatever it is that the company is aiming for, or even creating efficiencies for your company in terms of the people who work for the company in the back office. So any organization that is embarking on this, you have to be unreasonably aspirational. Yeah, create a sketch of the vision. It has to be very clear. Do your research. Yeah, get the buy-in from the different stakeholders in the organization even before you embark on this particular journey. And remember, digital transformation is not about creating digital application. It's not about a web page or a mobile application. It's about creating value. It's about saving costs for an organization. Therefore, the thought process has to be aspirational. Yeah, moving away from the normal way of thinking and thinking completely outside the box. Then I talked about, excuse me, I talked about acquiring new capabilities. It's very important to invest in a team, lay down the right structures for the team. If you need to go outside your industry where the organization plays in terms of, for example, if you're in the FSI, but there's certain skills in probably the entertainment industry that can be of value in your journey, then it's important to also get those resources from different industries. Then reinforce and cultivate talent. So once you acquire this talent, given that the talent is very scarce, then it's important for you to be able to create those incentives that are more aligned to a digital team. Yeah, how do you then ensure that this team is able to stay with you through the lifetime of, at least through the lifetime of the transformation journey, so that they can, incrementally create value for your customers. Therefore, you have to create a different HR model from what we are used to in terms of managing teams. The other thing is around challenge everything. Don't accept historical norms. Don't concentrate too much on your traditional business. Create a plan, covering every function of the organization that will be critical in this particular journey. And actually, it's the entire organization. Yeah, each and every business unit has to be very clear in terms of what is my input in this particular journey? How am I going to contribute to creating this value for our new customers, etc. Then be quick and data driven. So digital transformation is about being agile. You have to be very agile in terms of how you respond to customer issues, respond to customer problems, and solve them immediately. And therefore, this is actually powered by data. You have actually to have a very good, a very good way of analyzing your data, and creating the relevant insights that will help you power and continually iterate your proposition to customers in a way that you're able to retain them and actually even just continue to grow them. Then follow the money. Yeah, so digital, I think a lot of us concentrate so much on the front-facing channels where our customers interface with us, but it's also about saving costs for the organization. Yeah, so you look at then your back-end processes, how then can we make them more optimal, and that would actually save the company a lot of money in terms of leveraging the technology that is out there, things like RPA, to ensure that you have a leaner organization and also your processes are more efficient. Then lastly, be obsessed with the customer. I think we've been seeing this a lot in our market also. We saw a company that appointed a customer obsession officer. Excuse me. And one of the things that has made Amazon very successful is that that's actually their motto. Yeah. So the whole organization has to be obsessed by the customer. What does this customer need? How can I individually in the organization work towards ensuring that this customer actually we're delivering value and the right value for that particular customer. Therefore, being obsessed with the customer will help you build the correct experience for your customer, continually monitor that experience, and therefore you're able to retain those particular customers, using your platforms, etc. And that actually ends my presentation. My last remark, even before I finish, is that digital transformation is a journey, yeah, and organizations should be very clear on that. There's no magic wand that allows you to move from 0 to 100 immediately. No, it's a journey, And therefore, teams have to be allowed to experiment, to fail, and to be successful. And it's a continuous process that the whole organization has to be entrenched, in the whole organization for the value that digital has for it to be able to come to fruition. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Anita, for a wonderful eye-opening presentation. And I'd love to just highlight to the rest of our panelists as well as attendees, you can contribute to the conversation. And we have pronouncing your name right correctly, Georgina. So she's saying that I agree with quote unquote holding someone accountable at the board level and challenging historical norms. That is, digitalization in an organization will work if the leadership is able to run with the vision and adapt to the changing times. I believe, Georgina, you are giving a nod to the presentation that Anita has just shared with us. And even before we head on to the last speaker for today, I'd love to correct something. I had mentioned about Max, but I forgot to, I had presented to you Max, who is the head of strategy and innovations at Nation Media Group. But apologies to you, Max, I forgot to mention about your credentials. Max has an MBA, Masters in Business Administration in Strategic Management with a bias on disruptive technologies, and he's currently pursuing his leadership and innovation. And still on Max, we had a question from Nelson Sadiki, who asked strategy in an industry that is still heavily reliant on print. So I'd love Max to answer him once we are done with our last speaker for today. And thanks, Nelson, for that question. To the rest of our attendees, kindly keep on contributing to our Q&A section. Ask as many questions as you can, and yeah, you shall get comprehensive feedback from our speakers. So finally, we have Razel Akwom, who is the head of group payments at Letshigo Holdings Limited. And Razel will speak to us about the different technologies used by companies to enable them maximize on the digital revolution and how companies track their performance. So Max, over to, sorry, not Max, Razel, over to you whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Emma. And the pronunciation for that, it's let's say. I took a while to get used. And you know, when Emma was introducing me earlier, she forgot to mention that I love toast in whatever shape, way, form, or color. I recently discovered black toast in Latvia, and it took me some time to get used to it, but ultimately I loved it. So because I enjoy toast, I really want to talk about making toast for the digitally savvy today, okay? And I think for me, what's important is I want to introduce you to Pepper. Now, Pepper is a robot that has been developed by IBM. And the first time I met Pepper, she came up with a quote and told me that the last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for the experience that they want everywhere. You know, I'm glad that Max from Nation is here. Why? Because whenever I read this sentence, it really rings true to my 8-year-old son, all right? I keep telling my friends who work at the media stations that we are the last generation they have unless they change. Because my son, whenever he feels like he wants to be entertained, he goes to either Amazon Prime, Netflix, or YouTube. He never really tunes into any of the major or minor stations. Why? Because of the experience. And that's the minimum expectations of the experience that they want. And because of this, when Qhala and team asked me to talk about technology and digital transformation, I struggled. Because for me, digital transformation is about customer experiences. I rarely ever think about technology when it comes to digital transformation. Because for me, it's about end-to-end journey optimization and automation and digitizing, as opposed to individual IT technology projects. But I thought, I'm going to give it a try. And this is how I want to do it, because I want to present what digital transformation means to me, even as I talk about the technology around it. So how I look at digital transformation, and I'm so sorry that this slide is busy, but stick with me. I'm gonna help you navigate through it. I look at digital transformation from 4 main aspects. And the first aspect for me is connectivity, all right? You see, organizations nowadays have a lot of touch points that they use to serve their customers. Take a bank, for example. Anita works for a bank. We've got, you know, the USSD platform, the apps, the web, the branch, the ATM. All these are touch points that you need to serve your customers. Now, what connectivity ensures for the organization is that the experiences you give your customers in all these channels are consistent. I'm sure most of us have experienced, you know, periods where whichever bank you bank with, a certain channel has a different experience from another channel. So to bring all this into focus and ensure that the experiences are similar across all channels, connectivity is key. Now, some of the technologies around connectivity, the touch point of the customer, is what I would call augmented reality or mixed reality. There's a bank that has used augmented reality on their mortgage app, which should be very interesting for Anita because they are also heavy on mortgage, where you literally go in and view a house, literally view it like you're in it before you make a decision as to whether you want to buy it or not through that same bank. So this is what is very important, and this is what enhances the user experience that your customers need to have. The other important technology around connectivity is what a lot of organizations refer to as the omni-channel. So what the omni-channel does, it helps you to deliver that consistent experience across all the touch points that you need to deliver it to, all right? So that whether it is app or web or the branch, whatever experience you want to deliver is the same, so that the customer doesn't feel like they're in a different bank, depending on the channel that they're actually literally using. What the omni-channel platform also enables you to do is that it helps you develop sort of the product features once and once alone and represent them across all channels at once. Before omni-channel, what organizations did then was to develop each and every feature in each and every channel, which was a waste of time, a waste of resource, and really the time to market was too much. The second aspect around digital transformation for me is automation. End-to-end customer journey, optimization, and automation. You see, as organizations grow, you'll realize that there are a lot of processes that are very repetitive. You do not want to inundate your staff with repetitive processes. You know, the workforces nowadays, we see millennials coming into organizations now, and they're rising up. I think the next wave of major CEOs will be the millennials. Now, in a certain research that was done by IBM, apparently millennials have a concentration span of around 10 seconds. That's around 2 seconds better than that of a goldfish. Now, if the majority of your employees are going to be millennials and you want to inundate them with repetitive processes, I don't think you'll sustain them for long. So it's very important that for the processes that are very, very repetitive, you automate those, right? In this aspect, we see organizations coming in and doing business process management platforms that basically, I would say, orchestrate some of the elements within the organization into journeys that are repetitive so that they are established without the need for human intervention. So they just keep running and they keep producing for you. We see a lot of robotics around this space. I'm sure most of us, if not all, have had the opportunity to, interact with chatbots, right? So these are some of the processes that come in around automation, using robotics to ensure that these processes run without really human intervention. And it's also cost efficient and fast, saving you a lot of time around your processes. I know for a fact that Barclays have digitized, so this is ABSA, have digitized account opening process. Not in this market though, maybe they'll introduce it in this market soon, that really reduced it from I think 30 to 40 minutes to around 10 minutes. And this was a really big deal for them. The third aspect for me around digital transformation is decisioning. It's all about the big data. How well do you understand your customers so that now you can build products for them? You see, the whole essence of digital transformation is to find products for your customers and not customers for your products. And this is the aspect that will come and help you ensure that you actually find products for your customers. Now, around this space, we see a lot of artificial intelligence. And we see a lot of organizations coming in and proclaiming, and the key word here is proclaiming, that they are now implementing artificial intelligence in a number of initiatives that they're working through. Now, while data is important, I think one of the aspects we should ask ourselves as organizations, how clean is that data and how capable am I as an organization to leverage on that data to understand my customer insights, all right? A recent study came up with a very interesting conclusion. They said that for most organizations, especially in this part of the world, that hold a lot of data, it's interesting how totally unclean that data is. And they made reference to somebody walking into a library, a 5-story library, looking for a single book, yet all the books are down on the floor. How do you identify that one book? So while artificial intelligence is good and data analytics is even better around that space, most organizations around this space are still only doing data engineering, whereby they're cleaning up that data to ensure that it is readied for artificial intelligence and data analytics so that they can capably predict what their customers really want. Some of the banks that we're seeing globally are using artificial intelligence, for example, to predict loan delinquency. We see a lot of articles nowadays in the newspapers as a result of COVID, just how loan delinquency is rising. A lot of homes are being repossessed and stuff like that. So you see, for a bank to make a decision around who to loan to and who not to loan to, data is very key. And this is where the application in digital transformation comes. Now, if you're a small organization and you're hearing this, hearing omni-channel, artificial intelligence, robotics, and you're thinking, I'm just a small organization. How then can I think about all these big technologies? I think for me, what the most important technology, which I'm going to speak to next, is really what informs the whole technological aspect of digital transformation, and that's cloud. Cloud comes in to totally democratize the technologies that you need to even the smallest of organizations. You can enjoy the benefits of artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain, all that simply by connecting to cloud. Let the big guys like Google and Microsoft build and research on them and then present them to you through cloud. So cloud is another technology that I personally feel is very important in the digital transformation. And as a fourth element of digital transformation is around innovation. I think the biggest thing around innovation for me is to ask yourself 4 questions. Are my products challenging the orthodoxies? Am I challenging the legacy systems, the legacy products that are currently existing in the market? Are my products leveraging on existing exciting trends? And am I also leveraging on a resource that is key and unique to me that cannot be replicated by another institution? And finally, am I fulfilling the unmet needs of my customers? You know, those 4 questions, I mean, if you get yes, 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 and yes to them, it basically means that your product is innovative. But then innovation nowadays is very collaborative. You need to collaborate to innovate, all right? You know, when I was growing up, there was an interesting song by an artist known as Vanilla Ice. Some of you might be so young not to remember Vanilla Ice, but he had a song that talked about stop, collaborate, and listen. And I usually think about that line and how relevant it is to innovation. You just need to stop, you know, your normal ways of working, then start collaborating around the space that you need collaboration with, and then listen, really listen to your customer. So the technology that helps you really collaborate is a technology that opens up your microservices and services, open banking, open APIs. We use all that. We ensure that organizations can work together to produce different products, different services for their customers. All right. Now, having said that, in the digital transformation strategies that I've been a part of, I think one of the saddest things I come across is people asking you, are we now transformed? You know, it's very interesting. Digital transformation, for most people, they look at it as an end, not realizing that transformation is an ongoing thing. It's very continuous. So we never really get to a point where we've transformed, but we need to keep transforming. And therefore, the matrices that you should be measuring, even as you transform, should also be matrices that are very, very continuous. Now, some of the most interesting matrices are, like, I would say, transformation maturity. And I deliberately use transformation maturity here because the maturity aspect depends on your objective as digital transformation. You see, digital transformation is a very personal matter to an organization. My objective to digitally transform should not be your objective to digitally transform. Get your own objective. It could be to be a more agile company. It could be to be more customer-centric, but it is yours. Understand it, learn it, know it, and then start measuring the maturity around that. Take, for example, if your objective is to be an agile organization that reacts to the various forces in the market, some of the elements that you need to measure here is on agile maturity. So ask yourself, how agile am I as an organization? And to measure that is as simple as doing a Google form, Google form questionnaire, sending it out to the team that is working on your transformation, seeing what responses they're getting on a periodic basis, measuring that and seeing how best the team is improving. The other element about measuring digital transformation is about the business output. Whatever you do around your digital transformation, it has to make you money. It has to meet your business objectives. Otherwise, it is not very sustainable. So ask yourself, if my digital transformation's goal is to become more efficient and help me save on some costs, how much of this cost am I saving? What's the percentage? Is it towards the target that I have planned? What can I do better to achieve or even exceed the goal? So business output is very, very important. Now, digital transformation is all about the customer too. So some of your matrices, most of your matrices need to be around the customer experience, the user engagement, active usage, availability, and reliability. I'm particularly interested on the availability and reliability with respect to banks. I know a lot of banks look at availability of their systems. And one of the systems that they love looking at is the ATM. So they'll report 99 to 100% availability of the system. But I was always pushing the banks to look at not the system availability, but the service availability. You see, an ATM might be up, a customer can log into it, but when the ATM runs out of money, the customer cannot get service from that. The customer cannot get service from that ATM. So system availability and service availability are totally different things. So when we talk availability, it's really service availability and not the system availability. And the other aspect that is worth looking at and measuring is team productivity. Because even as you begin your digital transformation, whether it's a small team, I think Anita made reference to the fact that it's important to have a separate organization, a separate team to look into your digital transformation. So looking at that separate team, that separate organization, what's their productivity? And how then best can you help them to achieve the productivity levels that they need to achieve? Take an agile team, for example, that is practicing, I think Scrum is the most popular agile methodology. What's their velocity rate? Okay, what's their planned versus done, initiatives? What's their actual versus committed stories? What are their escaped defects? All these are things that you need to keep measuring to help improve the team, even as they deliver on your digital transformation. Now, I would like to conclude by sharing some of the lessons, key lessons that I've learned through the various digital transformation initiatives that I've gone through. One of the things that I see most organizations do is they try to figure everything out. I think it's very important that do not wait until you have everything figured out before you start. Just start. Have a bias for action. Start from somewhere. Everything else, you'll adapt as you move. The other thing that comes normally in most conversations around digital transformation is that we are not digitally transformed because our systems are legacy. You see, legacy systems will not be the reason why you fail. It's the legacy thinking. I think the culture is very, very important to achieve your digital transformation objectives. And then you need to tailor your digital transformation around your customers. You need to co-create everything with your customers. Develop everything you're doing with your customer, because if you don't embed the customer voice in everything that you do, then who else are you building the product for? It's very, very important. Now, top management support. And I think this has been talked about by Max and by Anita. I mean, if right from the board level to the executive committee, if they don't buy into your transformation strategy, then you're really not going anywhere. So you really need that top management support to ensure that your digital transformation falls into place. Now, this many people never really like, but if you're not uncomfortable, then you're not succeeding. In your digital transformation, you really need to push for velocity. You need to embrace new ways of working, and you need to get the right and new skill set. That is very important. Even as you introduce digital transformation, most people are usually worried about their jobs, all right? But it is what it is. You need to bring that lack of comfort to the organization. That's the only way you start seeing success. So don't be at a level where you're feeling you're comfortable. Push for velocity, push for new ways of working, get the new skill sets if you need to. And finally, being aspirational, because Anita said you need to be very aspirational in your digital transformation. But please, don't take that to mean that you try to do everything at once. It's very important that you embrace the spirit of a minimum lovable product. Other organizations call it minimum viable product. So focus on delivering little value to your customer on a regular basis. And with that, thank you.
Wow, this has been, as you said, making toast for the digitally savvy. Thank you so much, Razel, for a wonderful presentation on how to track digital transformation in our organizations. and at least how to customize metrics of success as far as digital transformation is concerned. Again, I feel I love it, especially that you've given a nod to one of my favorite quotes by, why am I forgetting her name? She's the CEO of IBM. She's a lady. It's called comfort and growth cannot coexist. Yeah, comfort and growth cannot coexist, and therefore organizations and even people, even at a personal level, have to embrace discomfort if they need to realize change. Okay, thank you for that. And then even before we get to a number of questions that I have for you, our speakers and even our audience, I'd love to point out some of the key takeaways that I have noted down. And I'll begin with Max. He talked about having the need to have a simple, inspiring story that sells your vision. And I loved, Max, your insistence on why organizations, why they should allow internal channels of communication to foster creativity, because feedback is key. And we also had a question from Nelson Sadiki, who asked you, how do you develop a technology-driven adaptive strategy in an industry that is heavily reliant on print? So Max, I'll give you time to talk about that. But before that, something that I noted from Anita's presentation is the need to embark on digital transformation and working backwards. And Dr. Shiko Gitao, our CEO at Qhala, has actually, thanks to your recommendation, just bought a book from Amazon. So that was really inspiring. And then Anita, you also talked about the need to, the importance of tracking customer experiences at every touch point in an organization, and therefore being able to solve for that. And not only solving, but knowing which tools are required to solve the customer experiences. And I loved your quote on the digital transformation, that it is about creating wholesome value for all stakeholders through leveraging technology. And finally, our last speaker for the day was Razel Akwom. And I loved your quote, Razel, the bot from IBM, that the last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for the experience that they want. That was really inspiring and eye-opening as well. So I'd love to open the floor now to our attendees for the day. If you have any questions, kindly paste them, type them on the chat section, and then I'll be able to read them out. But we can begin, meanwhile, we can begin with a question from Nelson Sadiki, who asked Max, how does an organization develop a technology-driven adaptive strategy in an industry that is still heavily reliant on print? Max, over to you.
Thank you very much. Nelson, thank you very much for joining, and thank you for your question. I think the landscape has shifted, and a lot of this is probably just a mindset issue. So if you look at where Nelson comes from, Nelson is a good friend of mine. He comes from Tanzania. He's based in Tanzania. The Tanzanian market has got, I think, 16 to 18 daily newspapers. So if you look at the newsstand, it's full of newspapers. So it's a mindset thing. So we have to make a mindset shift, not only within the organizations, but with the customer as well. Yeah. And change is about conquering hearts and minds of the people you're engaging. It could be your colleagues, it could be your customers. But it's about conquering hearts and minds. It's about leading your followers in the direction you want them to go. So that said, a couple of things. One, data is showing that newspapers have been declining in the African market from about 2014, at least in our setup. From 2014, it's been declining year on year. In the European market, and I can see a few people have joined from Europe, they'll tell you it's probably been from 2011, 2012, much earlier than it was here. And so it is important that the transition is made in three aspects. One is in the mindset. Yeah, what I talked about, culture, working towards a sustainable culture that drives a digital workplace or a digital mindset. Two is in skilling your resources adequately enough to help you make that transition. So there are resources or there's talent that you'll probably not have in-house that you will need to acquire to be able to drive that transition. And there's talent that is in-house that is either willing to make the transition or is capable of making the transition to the new spaces. So it's acquisition of talent and upskilling talent. And then 3, I talked about earlier the inflection points. One of the inflection points was technology. So technology is a big part of this. So you have to take a break when you're making that transition and take a pit stop, so to speak, and think about what kind of technology should you invest in or should you develop that helps you drive your digital transformation agenda successfully or sustainably so. So in-house, what we had was what we call validation of infrastructure or technology for that matter. And so we looked at every technology that we had that helped us to engage with the customers, that helped us to drive revenue growth and engagement with the customer. And so we asked ourselves, do we need this technology residing in silos with the legacy approaches to business, or do we need to identify infrastructure that is consolidated, that is omni-channel, and that helps us deliver efficiently and effectively to that customer? And I remember Russell talked about omni-channel, which forms a big part of what you deliver as part of your technology. So 3 things: culture, which defines mindset, 2 is skills, and 3 is technology investment. Thank you.
Could I just add on to that, Nelson? So thank you for the question. Looking at it, how do you develop a technology-driven adaptive strategy in an industry that is still heavily reliant to print? I mean, the simple answer to that question that I could give you is don't. The moment your strategy is technology-driven, then you're flawed, right? Look at it from a business-led adaptive strategy that is technology-enabled, okay? So always start with what you want to achieve with your customers, not what technology you want to implement for your customers. The technology comes way, way later. Let your business drive your technology. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Max and Razel, for that. And then one thing that has stood about Max's answer is change is about conquering hearts and minds. And that is exploring the emotional elements of these digital experiences, products or services that every company is trying to develop that actually leverage on technology, and understanding that it is human beings behind the solutions that are being put out there. So thank you for that, Max and Razel. I think now, Anita, I would love to ask you, what does a digital transformation framework look like from an organizational perspective?
Okay, thank you, Emma, for the question. So a typical framework for the digital transformation journey has several components in them. The first being the right digital business strategy. So just piggybacking from what Russell has said and what Max has said, digital transformation is not about technology, it's more about business. Therefore, in terms of the strategy for the business, it has to be very clear from the onset, and that's the first pillar in terms of the digital transformation framework. And this is powered by things like, so before a company embarks on that, you have to look at, where is the company right now? What are the customers, which customers am I serving right now? What kind of products am I, am I providing for them in terms of value propositions? And am I really speaking to those needs that are important to them? Yeah, so you have to start from that basis, and then from there, go and validate that particular problem that you're trying to resolve. And that really is the anchor of any digital business strategy, because from there on, every other thing will feed from that. So the second pillar is around people and culture. Therefore, once you're able to define your digital transformation strategy from a business perspective, then you have to ensure that you have the right people in place to be able to drive that strategy. And remember, we're not talking about technology yet. So you're talking about So this is the target customers that I'm targeting in terms of this particular business strategy. This is what I'm solving for. Then do I have a team in place that will be able to drive that particular strategy from a digital perspective? So you have to move away from, a lot of us as bankers, we are really stuck in our old ways. Yeah, so we try to create products with a traditional mindset. Yeah, and even how we engage with this particular customer is very traditional. So you have to have a team that understands that the digital native customer is very different from the traditional customer, and therefore come up with a team that has that in mind, has the right skills to drive that agenda solely. Then, of course, there has to be a business alignment. Of course, you won't go and pack all your your traditional products, pack them, and now you say you're concentrating on this. But there has to be an alignment between what is this new value that I'm providing for my customer against what has been there, yeah, and see whether there's a way you can align both ends to be able to also still continue providing the value that you have been providing for the existing customers, and also getting the impact that you've been getting from the traditional business. And now that you have a new business in the digital angle, how then can the two businesses be aligned? So that has to be very, very key. Thereafter, you look at, so you have the three pillars. You have your business strategy, you have your people and culture, you have business alignment with the traditional businesses. The next thing now is to look at, do I have the digital capabilities that will power this new value proposition that I'm giving that, or I'm solving for in terms of new value proposition, yeah? And this is now where you probably start looking at what kind of technology do I have now, yeah? And what kind of investments do I have to make, yeah? Whether to completely overhaul the existing technologies that I have, or trying to of course, in terms of from a financial perspective, you can't just overhaul systems. So you have to look at what are those tools that will enable me to still provide the value that I want to provide for my customers, but still leveraging on, still using the same technology that I have at the moment. Yeah. And then, of course, the other pillar around that will now help you drive this is around digital innovation. Yeah. So you have to continually innovate against the strategy that you came up with. So you have to have the different frameworks that support agility and a lot of agile governance. Yeah. So you have to have a product that you're able to continuously iterate. And again, there are certain tools that enable such kind of activities. And then, of course, you have to look at what is your competitive advantage? I like Carlton Christensen, who is the father of digital disruption. One of the things he said, the reason why incumbents can never disrupt the market is because we continually add functionality on products that are not really necessary for the customer. So you sit down and think around a table and you decide, okay, fine, I think Anita needs another use case, another payment use case. Yet you really don't understand exactly what Anita needs. And therefore you end up building a lot of features on your product that are really not used. Yet a startup will come in with very minimal features on their product and completely disrupt the existing incumbents. So you have to have that in mind, that you're building your products for your customers, not for yourself. Yeah, so those are the frameworks that I work with in terms of digital transformation. Thank you.
Wow,
thank you, just to comment, probably just to add on to what Anita has said, and very elaborate indeed, Anita. I think for a lot of the organizations that we already currently run, and Anita had alluded to this earlier, that we don't have the luxury of startups. So I'd say in the digital transformation space, we are startups with assets. So we don't have the luxury of the struggle of assets of startups as it were. But we are startups with assets in the digital transformation space. So we have to leverage on our strengths to be able to drive that agenda successfully. Two, we are dealing with a more discerning customer, and I said this earlier. So there's what we call the rise of the knowledge customer. They know what they want, how they want it, when they want it, in what formats they want it. And so you cannot just develop solutions that speak to you, because what Anita is saying is you end up having a lot of features in a product that then do not resonate with the customer. And that's why a lot of this should be data driven, because of the discerning customer you're dealing with. So there has to be a lot of data driven approach in addressing that customer need. And in our setup, what we've done is what we call A/B testing in an agile project implementation environment, where you try out a feature in the market and see how the customers respond to it. If they appreciate it, then you scale it up. If they don't, then you drop it. So it's A/B testing of different features on the product that you've developed as you go. So it's a moving target, so to speak, as you continuously develop the product. And like I said, you could have a product that makes sense to the customer today, but tomorrow that is not how he wants to consume it. He's thought differently, appreciates it differently. So you have to keep testing these things in the market and try out what works best for them on a continuous basis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Max and Anita. And speaking of data, a question to Razel is how can companies or organizations use the return on investments to track their digital transformation?
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Just before I get into that, just as an overflow, the previous question, I know as panelists we've been pushing, let the customer, work with the customer, co-create with the customer. It's important to also note that you need to find the right balance between where you let the customer control and where you really want to control as an organization. Yeah, I think the trick is getting that right balance. I mean, Ford is popularly quoted as saying, if you would have asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? So it's very important that you get the balance on where you need the customer input and where you really need to push something to the customer. You need to get that synergy. Now, your question on return on investments with respect to digital transformation, it really starts with what your objective is as an organization to digitally transform. I know there's the umbrella objective, you want to survive because the market is changing, so you really want to survive. But it's essentially like, even in your survival, what is it you want to do, right? Do you want to be a more agile organization? Do you want to be a more customer-centric organization? What is it that you really, really essentially want to do? Now, once that is in play, then you can think about the resources that you need to put, and hence the return that you're going to get from the resource that you're going to do. So it's affected by your objective as an organization. In my presentation, I talked about business outputs, right? Whatever it is that you do, you need to keep an eye on the business, because if it doesn't make you money, well, it won't really be sustainable, and it won't be good for the board and the CEO. So to get their support, you also need to show them where the money is going to come from. So some of the things that organizations I see around sort of look at when they want to look at the return on investment, even as they push their products, things like, I would say, customer lifetime value. Okay, what value am I getting from this customer from the time they start interacting with my product to the time when they finally leave? All right, or stuff like churn rate. All right, am I maintaining my customers, or are they leaving to my competitors? There's also stuff like conversion rate. Because we're in a digital world, okay, we tend to reach a lot of customers in faster compared to before. But then reaching them and having them as your customers are two different things. So how do you convert them to an actual place where you can actually call them your customers? And then we also look at things like Net Promoter Score. And this is very important because you see, digital has not only affected direct products, but it has also affected some of the things that we were doing around products. Okay, take for example marketing, right? Before we'd market in the big TV stations and the big newspapers, but nowadays there's marketing that is as simple as word of mouth, okay, referrals. So how many of your customers can actually recommend your product to other people, right? So those are some of the things that you can start using to capture sort of the matrices and the elements around your return on investment. But return on investment as a subject on its own is very specific, and it's tied down to your objective as a digital transformation organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Razel, for that. A reminder to our viewers on our Facebook page, as well as the attendees that we have, is today we are speaking about how to become, or how to make your organization or business become more flexible, agile, and intelligent through digital transformation that is taking place at a larger scale globally. So I'd love to open the floor to our attendees. In case you have any questions, this is your opportunity to ask any of our speakers before I now give the closing remarks. Do you have anyone with a question? Okay, probably as they think about a question to ask, maybe finally our speakers, Razel, Anita, and Max, you can take a minute or so each to just tell us how COVID-19, the pandemic, the global pandemic that is still currently here with us, how it has affected your efforts towards digital transformation at different capacities in your organization. Just a minute or so. We can begin with Razel.
Thank you, Emma. I think one of the things that COVID has brought, not only to my organization, but to a lot of other companies, is that we were not digital. We were not prepared, okay? And I think there's a forum I was in that people were remarking that COVID is the ultimate chief digital officer, right? It literally forced us to start embracing digital as a strategy, and digital as a way of working. But having said that, I think for me, COVID introduced an opportunity that we need to look into, right? It disrupted us, but it also presented itself with a lot of opportunity that we need to leverage on. Think about the elements of the industry, right? We were so hung up on our competitors, but yet somebody who's not really your competitor came and totally disrupted your way of working. So I think for us going forward as an institution, what we keep asking ourselves on a daily basis is, if someone or somebody or something was to disrupt us, what would that something, someone, or somebody do? And we play those out and we try to prepare for that. Had we done this earlier, we'd have probably seen COVID, and we'd have prepared accordingly. So it has shaped the way we look at competition, one, and it has shaped the way we look at global events and how it affects you as an organization. Something might start off in China, like COVID did. We didn't think much about it, but it's here with us. So any event that happens anywhere globally really affects you as an organization. I guess the saying that now the world is truly a global village rings true. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Anita, over to you. Please speak about how COVID has affected your organization's efforts towards digital transformation.
Okay, thank you. So I think one of the things that has really come out for us as an organization is the difference between digitization and digitalization, and I think it's become very apparent to not just us, but the entire industry, is that a lot of us were focused on whatever it is we were doing, we're more focused on automation, not really transformation or creating value. So now as an organization, all these different aspects of digital transformation, especially on the ROI that Russell spoke about, have really come out very strongly. And therefore, even tracking those KPIs in terms of our digital transformation investment and our projects has become very prominent in different forums in the organization, all the way to even at our board level. We are very aware about things to do with how we're retaining our customers on our digital platforms. What's the churn rate to what Russell was talking about? What is the customer lifetime value? How many active users do we have on our platforms? Then creating strategies around that to be able to up that towards those particular targets that we have set for ourselves as an organization. So COVID has really brought out these key KPIs that drive or actually help you measure how impactful your digital agenda is as an organization. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Anita. And there's a note from Shiko saying that she was hoping that someone would actually bring that up, digital transformation and digitalization. So thank you for that. Max, finally, please speak a little about C19 and your organization's efforts towards digital transformation.
All right, thank you. I think for us, media has been a very highly disrupted industry the last couple of years, 6, 7, 8 years. We're the most disrupted industry in the globe right now. So yes, the journey had begun, but probably slowly. COVID-19 has just helped us to fast track that transition into the digital space. And just to allude to what Anita was talking about, there's digitization, and then there's digitalization, and then there's the 360 transformation into digital transformation. So digitization for us would have been more of the physical newspaper into an e-paper. And then digitalization is more a lot around business processes into a more digital format. And then now we've moved straight into the digital transformation, where I talked about business re-engineering, process re-engineering, mental re-engineering, different business models. It's an entire overhaul. So for us at this point, what I'd say is COVID has fast-tracked that journey for us, but more importantly, it has helped us to open up our thinking around exploring new markets across Africa. So we're trying to drive our vision to be the media of Africa for Africa, going beyond the East African market, targeting markets in the West African market, the Southern African market, the further East African markets like Ethiopia that we've not thought about. And so it's a great opportunity for us to just begin to aggregate those audiences. Now, the next couple of years, 2-3 years from now, then our biggest focus is on aggregating audiences. So not so much about revenue. Like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we're focused on aggregating audiences. So a lot of our focus is about developing a user experience that stands the test of time so that we keep them there. We build a loyalty, more like a loyalty program or a following, a community of people who believe and trust in our product, who believe our product is authentic and good quality, and will keep them coming, and they can afford to, and they are willing to pay for it, so that then we are sustainably driving the reader revenue agenda. Now, it has also helped us see that our traditional competitors are not our competitors anymore, because we're operating in a different space. We are operating within the spectrum of the internet, as it were. And so in that space, you get people like Google, Twitter, Facebook, who in some sense have become publishers, aggregating people's content online and aggregating audiences and optimizing on that opportunity for revenues. So our traditional competitors have shifted. And so we have to deal with these new competitors who have come on board and are eating our lunch. So that said, we have to quickly make the transition into the new spaces, protect what we believe is ours, develop content that is trusted and good quality, and drive the growth of revenue in that space. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Max, for that. So we have come to the end of our session. I've enjoyed. And today we were talking about how do organizations, how do you make your business become more flexible, agile, and intelligent company through digital transformation, especially at a time when the world is still going through the C-19 or COVID-19 pandemic. Our speakers for today were Razel Akwom, who is the head of group payments at Leshigo Holdings Limited. Razel, I hope I've finally been able to pronounce that, Leshigo or Lehigo?
Oh, Letseho.
Let's Holdings Limited. Okay. And then we also had Anita Chege, who's the head of digital technology and delivery at HF Limited. And finally, we had Max Okeo, who's the head of strategy and innovations at Nation Media Group Company. Now, one thing that we have, our key takeaway from this session is that digital innovation is not just a short-term plug-in concept, but an evergreen process that has to be ongoing throughout, and it helps in reshaping company values, processes, as well as the employees' mindsets. But before we wind up, we'd love to give a minute or two to our CEO, Dr. Shiko Gitao of Qhala, to just speak a little about what we've talked about today. Shiko, over to you.
Hi everyone. I'll go the stunt of I'm protecting my physical health by not switching on my camera. But I wanted to say thank you so much. This was very nice. I think I was tweeting and talking so much because I was feeling everyone who was speaking, the topic is very near and close to my heart, having gone through a number of like digital transformation cycles with different organizations. What you're speaking to is actually very true. I picked some very new things. I picked something from Max when he talked about the, what is that? I have now forgotten it. The way you're managing expectation for success, you should manage the expectation for when you don't meet the challenge and the deadlines. And how do you manage? I finally found a name for that. I'll go back to my notes and write
frustration.
it out.
Are you talking about frustration, regression, and succession progression?
Yeah, that one, regression, the regression one, the frustration. I have found a phrase for it. So I'll be using it all the time. So thank you so much for that. From Anita, I love the working backwards methodology. I have the booklet, but I didn't know they had actually had a book out of it. I just bought it immediately. I'm listening to it. After this, I love Audible. If anybody wants to read books, listen to Audible, best way to do it. And from the toast guy, Russell, I loved the way you talked about discomfort. And this is the one thing that I talk to many people who are going into innovation, and because I get all this, like, can you mentor me on how to do innovation and digital transformation? And the first question I ask people, are you comfortable with discomfort? It's going to be super painful. You're going to be tagged names. They're going to call you names. Somebody's going to tell you that you're interfering with their work. You're not going to get support. I mean, I liked that every one of you asked about getting support from like your board, your execs, your teams, and nobody actually talked about your teams and the guys below you, because they're the ones who are going to, you're going to get like a nice memo. We are going into digital transformation. Russell or Max or Anita is the one who is in charge of it. And then people are like, digital what? We just work with me and we have a KPI to meet for this quarter, not happening. So all those things are going to be part of your journey, and just embracing that discomfort is part of our work. And you have to love it. I always say, I love the pain. And I mean, I've spoken to Max about his pain a bit. And I love the pain of actually doing, and when eventually you have launched something and you're seeing something out in the market, it is worth every single piece of pain. So thank you everyone for doing this with us. This is what we do for a living. And we are happy that you can create like a community of this. We want to be able to create a community of pain lovers for digital transformation. And we're just starting right now. Thank you so much for pointing out that digital transformation is a marathon, a painful marathon that we all have to take. And you have to celebrate every single win, small as it is, that you get in, and taking feedback, listen, become a good listener, taking feedback and learn from feedback, and know that everybody has something to add into your journey. That's the one lesson I have learned, is that everybody has something to add into your journey. So thank you very much. Follow up for insights. We are going to consolidate this into small snippets of videos. We are going to write a blog out of this. So look out for insights about this, and you're going to be bringing these people over and over again. I saw Laura Chite here. We are trying to do something with them. So hopefully by the next Inquisitive, we'll be able to formalize something with CIO, to do something with them, so that this becomes like a community of transformers and who actually are seeing results. And you also have a support mechanism when things are not working out the way you want them to. So thank you very much. Back to you, Madam Emma.
Okay, thank you, Shiko. And Shiko has actually summarized all the quotes that we've had in this session, that we are creating a community of pain lovers. And that reminds me of Ginny Rometty's quote. Razal, I've just remembered. Her name is Ginny Rometty. She's the CEO of IBM, I believe. And she says that growth and comfort cannot coexist. And that is actually like a very big nod to what digital transformation is all about. It's not comfortable, but it is very necessary. A reminder that we are spread out across various social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Medium, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also we have our website. I have pasted the various links on our chat section, so kindly would love to have visitors on our social media pages, and we look forward to interacting with you. The session might be over, but the conversation should be ongoing. Kindly leave us a comment, a remark, something that a key takeaway that you came down with from this session, and we will definitely get back to you. So thank you for making time for us. We really love to have you here, and we look forward to having you in our next sessions. So God bless, and have yourselves a lovely, lovely, lovely weekend. Thank you, Razel, Max, and Anita. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming.